So as you heard, my name's David Wood. I actually come from a background of 25 years in the mobile computing and smartphone industry. I serve on the board of Humanity Plus, the International Transhumanist Association, where I am the secretary of the board of directors. I also chair an organization in London called London Futurists, which meets at least once a month to have discussions about radical future scenarios. This concept of transhumanism, I'll introduce it with this famous picture, which is by the cartoonist Patrick Hardin. This is possibly the biggest picture of any that you might see in this whole conference, because it spans, 300, 400 million years. It shows a simplification of the great chain of being, with all these previous creatures being animated by their genes to eat, survive, and reproduce, until the human at the top so far wonders, what's it all about? And we're inclined to laugh at the human because he doesn't realize it's all about eating, surviving, and reproducing as far as genes are concerned. But then we think more and say, actually, the human's right. We have the chance now, with our big brains and our understanding, to take charge of the direction of evolution, to move it from natural selection on a very slow pace to a much faster, self-directed evolution. And that's the basic picture of transhumanism. And in this picture, what you're seeing is a possible silicon future. Other versions from pop transhumanism look to a possible cyborg future in which we have lots of bionic body parts. Others again look at possible transformations into beings of light. I think that's a person with lots of chakras animated. We can think of it in terms of profound experiences, new senses. Transhumanism itself does not dictate what we think the future will be, except that we do say that we have not reached the end of the evolution or the status of intelligent life. We disagree with what it says in the Bible that somehow mankind is the culmination of creation. We disagree with bioconservative evolutionists who say you can't do a better job than evolution. Evolution has done a very wonderful job. We say no, where we have reached so far is a comparatively early phase. Indeed, to quote Max Moore, basically the founder of modern transhumanism from 1990, transhumanism is a class of philosophies of life that seek the continuation and acceleration of the evolution of intelligent life. We're not waiting for another 300 million years for the next major phase. We're looking at major disruptions, major changes in human experience within the next 30 years. That's feasible. We will go beyond our current human form and human limitations by means of science and technology, guided by life-promoting principles and values. And let's look at this idea of going beyond our human limitations. Some critics of transhumanism say, you don't get it. It's our randomness, it's our intuition, it's our foibles that make humans so special. And I say, yeah, I'm all for that. But when I talk about human limitations, I'm talking about the limitations in our reasoning capacity. You know, we are often forgetful. We often unduly short-term in our thinking. We have lots of biases and prejudices. And frankly, a lot of the time, we are all pretty stupid. We may blame ourselves for being stupid. We may blame our colleagues and partners for being stupid. We may blame many electors and many modern democracies for being rather stupid. And that's a limitation we are currently facing, which I think is a very sad and disappointing limitation. Then we have limitations in our sensory ability. There's so much more we could be experiencing, but our senses aren't quite up to it. We only see a fraction of the color spectrum, and there may be other senses which other animals have, or which indeed no animals have, which could augment us. Then there's the limitations in our character. The fact that, for reasons which made sense, probably when we were on the African savannah in prehistory, we are pretty tribal, we are xenophobic, we are fearful of strangers, we're often cold-hearted, we're vengeful, we're egocentric. And whilst that might have been okay in evolutionary terms, in today's modern world, these are very dangerous character defects. And if we just get smarter without fixing these character defects, we're more likely to destroy the world rather than letting wisdom flourish. And then there's limitations in our will, what we can actually do. We have lots of energy and lots of excitement, but then all too often we fall prone to disease, to decay, to dementia, and to death. And some critics of transhumanism say that's all right, the purpose of life is to prepare for death, or some grand phrase like that. And I say, no. The purpose of life is to live, is to flourish, is to have more life. And transhumanists say, this is not just something theoretical. We can, in this next few generations, we can take advantage of science and technology to solve these limitations. And by science and technology, I'm talking about the accelerating trajectory of industrial revolutions. Thanks to science, thanks to open society, eventually the Industrial Revolution got underway, about 2.5 centuries ago. That changed the world dramatically, boosted economics. Then there was a second wave of Industrial Revolution with electricity and chemicals. A third wave of an Industrial Revolution, which is still under fierce progress with computers and consumer electronics. And then people in another Swiss conference in Davos, not in Crans, Montana, have been talking for the last few years about the fourth industrial revolution as some kind of convergence, which I'll talk about in a moment, and I think they're right. The industrial revolution we're just starting to live through and we're going to live through in the next 20 years is going to be even more profound than any we've seen so far in changing our society and indeed changing human experience. Just before I explain that fourth industrial revolution, I'll mention about the increasing pace of the generations. It's about 2/3 the time period between the successive industrial revolutions for reasons we could go into later. And if this pattern were to continue, and I think this accelerating pattern might continue, we can look ahead, perhaps in 35 years' time, to a fifth industrial revolution, which already has a name as well. That is the technological singularity, which might happen sooner than that as well. But let's dig into not what might happen in 35 years' time. Let's dig into what's happening in the next couple of decades with this fourth industrial revolution. It's a convergence. Radical futurists call it the NBIC convergence, the nanotech, biotech, infotech, cognotech convergence, in which there are 4 separate but overlapping and converging profound revolutions taking place. Infotech isn't just that we can compute and store and transmit information. That was the third industrial revolution. Increasingly, it's now deep learning. It's when the software is able to work out the rules and algorithms by itself and reach conclusions much better than ever before. Nanotech's about manipulating atoms on a smaller level. It's about better semiconductors. It's about new kinds of computers. We're going to have quantum computers doing very powerful things very soon. It's also about new materials. It's about sensors at microscopic and nanoscopic levels. Biotech revolution is about editing and understanding not our silicon, but our DNA, our genes. We're having huge leaps forward with techniques such as CRISPR to allow us to re-edit our genes more precisely than ever before. And cognotech, I'm sure you understand, having listened through many talks in this conference today on neurotech, it's about understanding and improving our neurons as never before. And there are 4 quadrants here. The left is physics in a way, and the right is biology, and the top is hardware, and the bottom is software. But what's more important is the overlaps and crossovers between these different revolutions, and we could spend a lot of time going into the ways in which improvements in some generate even new improvements in others. But we don't have time for that, so we'll just come to the conclusion. We will see in the next couple of decades increasingly new materials, new machines, new interfaces to machines. This includes improvements to optics as well as improvements to software that come elsewhere. So new machines, new insights, new algorithms, new kinds of life, both artificial life and natural or hybrid life, and new kinds of minds, including artificial minds and enhancements to human minds and hybrid minds. And these improvements, which I believe are coming sooner and sooner, will allow lots of practical transhuman enhancement in terms of reprogramming ourselves to remove diseases. We're already seeing some of this and some cures for cancers that weren't possible before. We can become not just well, but better than well. Not just remain young, but we can become endlessly useful if we like, so we can periodically detox ourselves or have maintenance done, so we can reset our biological age and anticipate, as in the words of the book I have recently published, The Abolition of Aging. So enhancements to our health, enhancements to our capability, as in the idea of the $6 billion man with prosthetics, or exoskeletons, or 3D printed organs, enhancements to our senses and vision, which I'm sure Carol and I will be talking about in a minute. Enhancements to not just our body, but to our brain and our mind via various drugs, not just coffee and alcohol, but other things that will make us smarter and more focused. We can also do that with increasingly these helmets, which you can get to stimulate your brain electrically, short-circuiting the long, painful work of meditation or yoga, getting that high very quickly. The smart helmets, as I mentioned. We are seeing lots of step forwards with brain-computer interface, and this is all tied to the new things that VR is going to make available for us. And in this way also, I look forward to us having increasingly an inbuilt smart AI assistant to help us become better people, to help us not be so foolish, to help us take a broader perspective, and to free us from cognitive biases. So that's the next couple of decades. Transhumanism looks a bit further ahead to mind transport, perhaps in the middle of the century, perhaps also to uplifting animals, not just transhumanism, but transanimalism. You might, in due course, talk to your favorite dog and get an intelligent conversation with it, perhaps. And then there's cryonics, which is transforming the experience of death as well, so that before we die, we are put into a deep animated sleep, potentially to be recovered. This raises lots of questions, of course, and that takes me back finally to the most important question of all, which is, well, how are we going to guide this? What are we going to decide we're not going to do, even though we could? How are we going to decide what to prioritize? And that's why transhumanism at heart is actually a philosophy as much as anything else, and it's summed up by this phrase, which is adopted about 10 years ago for the name of the movement, Humanity Plus. It's about taking the best in humanity and enhancing it. And this involves not just changes to the organism and changes to the mind, it will also involve changes to society. We'll be transcending some of the limits of society too, and I'll end with this quote from Arthur C. Clarke, who was asked about, well, what does he really think is going to happen with computers in the future, having shown a dystopian vision of HAL in 2001, and his comment is, you know, the goal of the future is full unemployment, not full employment, full unemployment, so we can play. And where will we be playing? More and more of the time we're going to be playing in virtual reality, enhanced in this virtual space, and also bringing these enhancements back to reality 1.0. So that is the vision of transhumanism as I see it, and I look forward to a discussion about it, and I welcome you to find out more about it from, for example, the Humanity Plus website. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. That's probably many years of giving talks on transhumanism, which is quite comprehensive. And this is my talk, which I rustled up in a hotel in a couple of hours, so let's see where the difference comes from. Is it working? Yeah, hopefully you have enough time. You're meant to have 5 minutes presentation. I think you went into like 15 minutes. It's okay. I'm going to have to brush on mine as well. I think if you go to like view and full screen, maybe. Okay. So yeah, this is the revolution of neuroplasticity, where I'm thinking transhumanism and all technologies that we're going to get with it is actually going to take us and what it means to us as humanity for our minds. So mass sociological unconstrained styles of conditioning. Yeah, so transhumanism, I think David's talked about a lot of that. This is this month's National Geographic. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of talk about it at the moment, like where's it going, what does it mean, what is transhumanism, like taking control of our own evolution. I think really, I think it's about freedom of mind, and I think that's what a lot of this is, to take control of our own minds as well as our evolution, because I mean, it's not everybody thinks that maybe it's going to look like that, we're going to be cyborgs, but actually it's going to look more like that on the right-hand side, where we can actually be more human and get back our humanity, because it's been constrained from the agricultural and industrial revolutions of the past, so it's going to be free again, hopefully. And so really the thing is that the brain extends itself to use tools. Transhumanism has been happening since we started using things outside of our brain. When the brain is scanned with neural imaging, we can see that it literally extends its view of the body onto the object that the mind is using. So if you're using an object, if you're using a garden tool, then the brain sees it as an extension of itself. And this is somebody having their brain analysed whilst they make primitive human tools. And it wakes up the same parts of the brain as when somebody is playing the piano. And this is more part of the brain where we kind of want to open up. So yeah, these are like the hole that we've managed to get ourselves in with our technology at the moment. Like, you know, which, wow, we're in all of this, aren't we? It's a mess. And so, like, the idea is to be able to get out of this. We want to go on to the next stage to prevent this constraining of our minds, which has happened with our technology, essentially. We want it to help facilitate us rather than imprison our minds. So some of the things these are my two favourite parts, I think, of technology that's going to help with transhumanism, which is gene synthesis service. There's a few companies now where you can order DNA strands, essentially like a section of code, to be able to do whatever you want. You can inject it into another organism, create your own organism, or inject it into yourself, which is going to be pretty cool. And I think this is where a lot of our next stage of evolution lies in, which is the power to the individual and like hyper self-ability, really, and in community as well. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And neural lacing, which there's a lot of talk about recently with Elon Musk's new company Neuralink, which is looking for people at the moment, and that's going to link us with the artificial intelligence that's coming and allow us to take control of technology and allow us to potentially become wizards with nanotech fog clouds and be able to bend reality to our will. So yeah, I'm going to talk about integrated information theory, which is like a concept in neuroscience, which is so it's trying to give a mathematical expression to the fundamental properties of experience. It's really cool stuff. I'm going to whisk through it, so it's more like something to take away after this, really, if you can imagine it. But yeah, it's about so the reduction of uncertainty among a number of alternatives constitutes information theory is to allow us to create uncertainty and how our mind, how consciousness emerges really with the brain. There's quite a lot there, but I'm not going to go into it because I'm trying to skim through this. But it does lead to the entropic brain hypothesis, which is sort of different levels of neuroplasticity. Over here you've got hyper neuroplasticity, and over there you've got sort of more rigid thinking. And generally with society, we're a little bit closer onto this slide, but hopefully with the coming stages of technology and where we're going, we'll be able to come a little bit closer to a higher entropy, which is very useful for creativity, but not very good for timekeeping or being organised, which I think I spent a little bit more time on this slide. So the thing is, what it does is that if you have this, so psychedelics, for example, which puts the brain into a higher state of neuroplasticity, it allows the brain to be able to see more potential realities and potential pathways, because the neurons can find neurons that are closer, and they don't have to be directly connected. They can just be linked. They found when people are sort of microdosing, when they look at a picture of a car, they're more likely to say bus, and that's just because their neurons are so closely linked. They might go on this avenue. When you have that over a huge series of a complex thought, your mind can end up in a very different place, and that's where we kind of want to get a little bit more. So yeah, at the moment, body not stiff, mind stiff, which I think is like a saying of where we are at the moment. And technology is going to allow us to free our mind, and we need to direct it that way. Remember, that's what it's for. Including virtuality, which is like allowing us to create new pathways with immersive technologies and to share these kind of new pathways to sort of break out of it. So yeah, I think the revolution comes from within, as we've always known, and that's going to be the next great revolution. It's a revolution of neuroplasticity, I think.
So, Carl, are you practicing any transhumanism? Are you looking forward to making yourself even more liberated than you are already with some of these technologies?
Yeah, definitely. I think, how am I liberating myself? Well, I want to splice my own DNA, certainly as soon as it's possible. It's getting more possible to change an adult human's DNA whilst alive, and we can do that individually, so I do want to splice my own DNA. At the moment, I'm thinking I want to glow in the dark, so I'm going to get jellyfish DNA and splice myself with jellyfish DNA.
So you're going to become 1% jellyfish? Are you?
A little bit jellyfish, but I think I always like to be as close as I can to the edge of what is humanly possible, and technology allows that, to do things that no human has ever done before, as long as you sort of investigate and work with that. And I think all of us are going to be splicing our DNA with different animals. I think we're talking about that. I want lobster. I think lobster DNA is going to allow us to stay young because they don't age very much. And so we're all going to have lobster DNA quite soon.
Yeah, if you have a lobster for dinner, it might even be older than you. It depends how big it is. Most of biology, the older you get, the more likely you are to die because your body gets run down. But lobsters are an example of a senescent species with minimal senescence, so that as they get older, they get no more likely to die than before. And as Carl says, it's partly genetic. There is something in there called telomerase, which makes the DNA strands get longer again at the ends and allows them to keep replicating forever. There is one woman who actually has injected herself with telomerase. If you want to look her up, her name is Liz Parrish from BioViva. 18 months ago, she had an injection of telomerase to make her telomeres longer, and so far she's looking very good. Now, I am not recommending you go off and do this to yourself, to be clear, and nor is this forum recommending it, but it is something to explore.
Because it requires the individual, because like, this isn't going to be things by law. Nothing has ever been followed by law, so just do it to yourself. Obviously, you can't do it to other people, unless you want to be a little bit like David from Prometheus. Everyone's seen that film. Yeah, don't test on other people with genetic modification, but do test on yourself and realise the problems and the potential dangers of it. But yeah, it comes from self-experimentation, I would say.
And I think you said something about glowing in the dark as well when we spoke earlier. Is it that's what you're interested in the jellyfish DNA for?
Well, yeah, I think it's more like the only reason why I'm doing that is because I like causing a little mischief and chaos when possible. As long as it's well placed, I think the world has changed with very carefully placed and thoughtful mischief. And I think if somebody creates a subspecies of human, then I think it causes a lot of things to come into question, such as race and gender. And if there's a subspecies, I mean, what? Like, that changes a lot of things, doesn't it, really? So let's get there as soon as possible.
So it's not just that in virtual reality you can change your gender and experiment with a different race. You might be able to change your gender and sexual preferences and race and all kinds of other aspects of your character.
Change the species.
Change the species too.
Yeah, definitely. So what about you? Are you going to get any implants? Are you getting implants? Yeah.
So the nearest thing I'm doing so far is a restricted calorie diet, which isn't very grand. It means 4 or 5 days a week I eat much less than before, because there's evidence that pushes the body into a state of greater longevity. But the best kind of enhancements we're going to have in the short term are things like these smart glasses. When I was struck by your pictures of upright primates going down like this, and we do bend over when our screens are down here. But once our screens are up here, then there's no reason for us to bend over anymore. Once our screens fill our whole visual field, it's going to be part of this liberation from the backward steps that we have taken along the way. So I'm very much looking forward to being a heavy user of whichever set of glasses come along.
Okay, no, not gonna put anything inside yourself. Not gonna cyborg.
Well, some things are quite large. I mean, you can put chips inside here currently, and people do it because they say, I don't need to bother remembering where my keys are anymore. When I change my handbag, I don't need to worry what I'm taking with me because it's all in a chip in my fingers. Some people are doing that. It could also mean that you don't need a security badge anymore. I think I'm waiting until they're smaller and they can actually go right inside and do this cleaning up of the body. That's what I'm looking forward to. But certainly I would like my brain to be enhanced. I did have my eyes lasered when I was 50, 8 years ago, and I've never looked back. It's given me much better vision than before.
And I always look forward to having my brain lasered too, not in the sense of actually being destroyed, but enhanced. So that is an enhancement I'm looking forward to, but I probably won't be the first person in the world to try it. And will probably be tried. As you mentioned, Elon Musk, he's going to try his enhancements first, probably on the people who are in desperate need of it, because there are people who are with failing brains currently, and they don't mind being the first people in that experiment. So when they are successful, then I'm sure most of us in this room will overcome our initial yuck. We'll say, you know what, this is actually good after all. I won't forget things anymore, and I'll be much smarter and much more together and liberated. Exactly what you said, that liberation is going to come from inside the mind.
That's why I think transhumanism, I think it's just a normal state of evolution. It is a state of evolution. It already was. It already has been. That's why the concept has just been going since we first held a rock and used it to smash a nut. That was it was trans-apism. Right? And so it's like that's the thing. It's just always in the state of constant thing. It's not like something which is like a goal that's to go for. It's just already happening, and it happens in whatever direction that we want to take it.
There probably was a conference of apes somewhere in Africa in the savannah a long time ago, when some of them were getting slightly larger brains than before, and they said, "What on earth's the point of this larger brain?" You know. And some of them might have come up with a theory. You know, well, we have a larger brain, we might have more ways of getting bananas than before. You know, that would be the limit of their thinking. I think that with us, with our enhanced consciousness, our enhanced thinking, we're going to get into whole new worlds, just as the apes could not imagine Pythagoras' theorem and Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and all the wonders of perspective art and so on. We could not imagine going to the moons of Jupiter. So similarly, what lies ahead of us is almost unimaginable by us today. But as we enhance our brains, we're going to have so much more to experience in the outside and internal worlds.
So I think hypothesis without action goes nowhere. So I think experiment with each other and experiment with themselves to become transhumanists. And that is going to require putting our minds into different states of consciousness.
I think Neil's going to stop us in a minute, but my action is to ensure that there is a favourable environment for more people doing research into the key areas of science in this. And so actually the political sphere needs to prioritise some of this work, more work on understanding the brain, more work on understanding ageing, more work in understanding the fundamentals in this, and so we can move more quickly to this much better world in which we are all more engaged and more positive members of society.